After getting pregnant by accident, I dragged my suitcase to the door, ready to run. The moment I opened it, a stream of text floated before my eyes. Why are you running? If you run, you're dead. Raven Smith has no brain. She's carrying the only bloodline of the Morrison family, and she dares to hide? After the male lead Matthias Morrison's car accident, his fertility was damaged. The child in Raven's belly is the Morrison family's only heir. Once Raven runs, the child will be taken by Juliet White. Juliet will marry into the Morrison family with a ready-made kid and rise to power through her son. I froze mid-step. Half a minute later, I kicked my suitcase back into the walk-in closet. Clutching the pregnancy test, I stormed into the top floor of Morrison Corporation. Matthias Morrison was in a meeting. I pushed open the conference room doors and slammed the report in front of him. Matthias Morrison, I'm pregnant. It's yours. The conference room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Dozens of eyes turned to stare at me. Matthias sat at the head of the table, his black shirt buttoned all the way to the top, his eyes cold and indifferent. 3 years ago, a car accident nearly took his life. After he survived, the Morrison family's private hospital issued a diagnosis. Matthias Morrison would have extreme difficulty having children. The Morrison family had been passing down a single heir for 13 generations. The old matriarch of the family, Lillian Morrison, was so anxious she consulted every renowned doctor. She even secretly arranged blind dates for him, but he coldly sent them all away. So when I threw out this pregnancy test, the faces of the executives in the room were even more spectacular than mine had been when I first saw those floating words. Matthias picked up the report and looked at it for 2 seconds. Miss Raven, please leave. I choked. You don't believe me? He looked up at me, his gaze utterly devoid of warmth. What do you want? That sentence hurt more than a slap to the face. I, Raven Smith, the pampered youngest daughter of the Smith family, had been spoiled and arrogant since childhood. I'd certainly done plenty of outrageous things, like chasing after Grayson Jones for 10 years, like getting drugged at a party and trying to make Grayson jealous, accidentally pushing myself onto Matthias Morrison instead. And then, after waking up, crying and cursing him for taking advantage of me. Matthias never explained. He just draped his coat over me and had his driver take me home. Half a month later, I found out I was pregnant. My first reaction was to run. After all, if my parents saw this report, they'd tear apart both the baby's father and me. But the floating text said if I ran, I would die. The child would be taken by Juliet White. Juliet White was the original novel's female lead, pure and resilient, gentle and kind. She would become the apple of Matthias Morrison's eye. And I was just cannon fodder paving the way for them. More text floated by. Raven, cry now. Cry hard. Matthias responds to softness, not force. Don't back down. She's the only one who's ever gotten pregnant with Matthias Morrison's child. Juliet has already been earning favor with Lillian. Wait any longer, and you'll lose both the husband and the child. I pinched my palm, my eyes reddening. Matthias Morrison, you sleep with me and then deny it? Someone in the conference room sucked in a sharp breath. Matthias's eyes flickered slightly, as if suppressing something. I walked around the table to his side and pressed his hand against my lower abdomen. You don't have to believe me, but you need to take care of me first. Matthias's fingers stiffened. I looked at him, my heart pounding painfully. His gaze lingered on my face for a long time. Meeting dismissed. Everyone immediately lowered their heads and filed out. The door closed. He withdrew his hand and pulled out his phone to dial an internal line. Send the head of obstetrics and gynecology up here. I had just started to relax. The conference room door suddenly opened again. A woman in a white dress stood in the doorway, holding a food container. Matthias, did I come at a bad time? The floating text exploded instantly. Juliet White is here. Juliet White looked very wholesome. White dress, black hair, soft eyes. Standing next to someone as cold as Matthias Morrison. She really did seem like a ray of light. She saw the pregnancy test in my hand, and her eyelashes trembled. Miss Raven, are you feeling unwell? I hid the pregnancy test behind my back, my tone stubborn. What's it to you? Juliet's face paled. I'm just concerned. Matthias asked her. Who let you come up here? Juliet bit her lip lightly. Lillian asked me to bring you soup. The doctor said your stomach hasn't been well lately. Matthias's expression grew even colder. Put it down and leave. Matthias, Lillian also said she wants you to come back to the old mansion tonight. The text scrolled rapidly. Here it comes. Lillian is going to set up Juliet and Matthias. Juliet saved Lillian's life. Lillian loves her now. If Raven acts up even a little, Matthias will find her annoying. I immediately moved closer to Matthias. You can't go tonight. Matthias looked down at me. You think you can control me? I tilted my face up. I'm carrying your child. Of course I can control you. Juliet's face grew even paler. Matthias looked at me, his expression calm, as if examining a contract full of loopholes. Raven Smith, you'd better understand the consequences of lying to me. I was afraid of him, but I was more afraid of you. Of dying. I straightened my back, trying to appear righteous. Then check now. 10 minutes later, the head of obstetrics and gynecology, Dr. Riley, arrived at the CEO's lounge with equipment and nurses. Blood draw, urine test, ultrasound. I lay on the bed, my skirt covering my lower abdomen, my palms covered in sweat. Matthias stood by the window, his back straight. Juliet didn't leave. She stood outside the door, looking in through the half-open entrance. The examination ended. Dr. Riley held the test results, her expression very complicated. Mr. Morrison, Miss Raven is indeed pregnant. Matthias froze. Dr. Riley continued, based on the gestational age, the timing also matches up. I immediately sat up. Did you hear that? But Matthias kept staring at Dr. Riley. Can the father be confirmed? Dr. Riley looked uncomfortable under his gaze. Invasive testing isn't recommended in early pregnancy, but non-invasive prenatal paternity testing can be arranged later. The smile on my face stiffened. Matthias Morrison, you still doubt me? He said nothing. Juliet suddenly walked in, her voice as gentle as water. Miss Raven, don't be angry. Matthias's physical condition is special. It's normal for him to be cautious. I grabbed a pillow and threw it at her. Who the hell do you think you are? Juliet stumbled back half a step, her eyes instantly reddening. Matthias frowned. My heart ached. I immediately threw off the blanket and got out of bed. Fine. I'm leaving. My foot had just touched the floor when my lower abdomen suddenly cramped. I bent over in pain. Matthias stepped forward in one stride, scooping me up, his voice urgent. Doctor. I gripped his collar, tears rolling down uncontrollably. Don't touch me. Matthias's body stiffened. The next second, the sound of a cane tapping on the floor came from outside. Lillian had arrived. As soon as she entered, her eyes went straight to my belly. Who's pregnant with my Morrison family's child? Lillian was in her 70s, with a full head of silver hair and a very straight spine. Matthias was holding me. I wanted to get down. He tightened his arms. Don't move. Lillian walked quickly to the bedside. How many weeks? Dr. Riley immediately answered. Around 6 weeks. Lillian's hands trembled. Really pregnant? Dr. Riley nodded. Lillian's eyes suddenly reddened. Juliet supported her, saying softly, Lillian, don't get excited yet. The child's paternity still needs to be confirmed. The joy on Lillian's face froze. She looked at Matthias. Matthias placed me back on the bed and pulled a thin blanket over my legs. It's early pregnancy. Risky tests can't be done. My heart gave a small jolt. The man who had just doubted me was now protecting me. Lillian frowned. Matthias, this concerns the Morrison family bloodline. Matthias's voice was cold and low. Her body concerns a human life. The room fell silent. The text drifted slowly by. Matthias is protecting her now. Juliet is panicking. In the original novel, Lillian trained Juliet as her grandson's wife. Now Raven has barged in pregnant. Raven, don't get cocky. The Morrison family branch members are about to fight for inheritance rights. Lillian sat down beside my bed and held my hand. Raven, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to live? The old mansion has dedicated nutritionists and doctors. I was about to say whatever, but Juliet spoke first. The old mansion is quiet, suitable for pregnancy. I can keep Miss Raven company. I actually studied nursing. I sneered. You keep me company? Juliet nodded. I'm afraid you won't be comfortable alone. I looked at Matthias. I'm not going to the old mansion. Lillian's expression soured. She asked why. My eyes reddened. My voice immediately softening. I'm scared. Scared of what? I pointed at Juliet. Scared of her. Juliet's face stiffened. Lillian was also stunned. I lowered my head and touched my lower abdomen. As soon as she came in, she talked about confirming the child's paternity. Then she wanted me to go to the old mansion. What if I fall asleep and something happens to the baby? Juliet hurriedly explained. Miss Raven, you've misunderstood me. I shrank into Matthias's embrace. See? She's glaring at me again. Juliet. Matthias looked down at me, a hint of amusement seeming to flash in his eyes before he quickly suppressed it. Lillian looked at Juliet, her expression cooling somewhat. Juliet, you should go back first. Juliet's lip turned pale. Lillian, go back. Juliet left, carrying the food container. As soon as the door closed, Lillian immediately changed her expression, gripping my hand. Raven, you can live wherever you want. I looked at Matthias. I want to live at his place. Matthias's brow furrowed slightly. Lillian immediately nodded. Fine, live at his place. Matthias said coldly. I didn't agree. Lillian tapped her cane heavily. You shut up. I almost laughed out loud. Text floated by. Step 1 of rising to power through her son. Success. Too bad the Smith family hasn't made their move yet. The next second, my phone rang. My mom's name appeared on the screen. I didn't dare answer. Matthias glanced at me. Afraid of your family? I spoke stubbornly. Who's afraid? The phone stopped for 2 seconds, then rang again. This time it was my dad. If I didn't answer, the Smith family would storm straight to Morrison Corporation. I took a deep breath and pressed answer. My mom's voice was shrill and terrifying. Raven Smith, where are you? I glanced at Matthias. Shopping. Shopping all the way up to the Morrison Corporation top floor? My scalp tingled. Did Grayson Jones snitch? Sure enough, my mom's next words confirmed it. Grayson said you went to find Matthias Morrison with a pregnancy test. I held the phone away from my ear. She continued yelling, You're pregnant? Lillian's ears were sharper than anyone's. She immediately leaned in. I closed my eyes. Yes. Silence on the other end of the line for 3 seconds. My mom started crying. Have you lost your mind? How old are you? What's going on between you and Matthias Morrison? Before I could speak, Matthias took the phone. Mrs. Smith, I will take responsibility. My mom on the other end went quiet. Then my dad's voice came through. Matthias Morrison, let Raven come home. Matthias looked at me. I immediately shook my head. He said into the phone, She's not in a condition to travel right now. My dad laughed coldly. You have no right to keep my daughter. Matthias's expression was indifferent. If she wants to leave, I won't stop her. I immediately grabbed his sleeve. I'm not leaving. The sound of a glass shattering came from the other end. My mom's voice shook with anger. Raven Smith, you just wait. The call ended. I buried my face in the blanket. I was done for. Lillian patted my hand. Don't be afraid. The Morrison family will protect you. I looked at her wearily. You wanted me to go to the old mansion and verify the child just a moment ago. Lillian was rendered speechless. Matthias cleared his throat lightly. Come back to my place first. I knew he lived in a luxury home, but when the car drove into the exclusive villa district, I couldn't help but gasp. My mood improved instantly. Matthias Morrison, your place is actually pretty suitable for pregnancy. He loosened his tie. The master bedroom is yours. I sat on the sofa, holding a cushion. Where will you sleep? Guest room. I frowned. If you're too far away, what do I do if I get hungry in the middle of the night? Matthias looked at me. Where do you want me to sleep? I pointed at the master bedroom's king-size bed. The bed is very big. His eyes darkened. Raven Smith. Don't provoke me. I immediately shut my mouth. That night, I woke up hungry and padded barefoot to the kitchen looking for food. The refrigerator was full of premium ingredients. I didn't know how to cook any of them. I dug out a box of strawberries and had just bitten into one when Matthias's voice came from behind me. "Why aren't you wearing shoes?" I was so startled the strawberry fell to the floor. He walked over, lifted me onto the kitchen island, and knelt down to wipe my feet. His movements were very gentle. I looked at his lowered brows and eyes, my heartbeat going out of control for a moment. Text suddenly appeared. Friendly reminder, Grayson Jones is downstairs. He brought the Smith family with him. The doorbell rang. Of the villa. The door closed behind him. Silence returned. My parents stared at me. I stared back. Then my mother suddenly burst into tears. I panicked. "Mom." She hugged me tightly. "My baby finally got over that idiot." My father looked emotional too. Then he glared at Matthias. "This doesn't mean I approve of you." Matthias nodded calmly. "I understand." My father crossed his arms. "You got my daughter pregnant. That's still a crime in my eyes." Matthias actually looked thoughtful. "Fair." Everyone stared at him. Even my father forgot to be angry. The floating text drifted lazily through the air. Interesting development. The future father-in-law and son-in-law may become natural enemies. Meanwhile, trouble is approaching. Juliet White is crying in her room, and one of the Morrison family branch heirs just heard about the pregnancy. The inheritance war is about to begin. My smile slowly disappeared, because whenever those floating words appeared, they were never wrong. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of arguing downstairs. Loud arguing. The kind that made it impossible to sleep through. I sat up groggily. The floating text appeared immediately. "Wake up. Wake up. The inheritance vultures have arrived." I rubbed my eyes. "What vultures?" The text answered instantly. "The Morrison family branch relatives. Professional parasites. Masters of pretending to care about family while calculating how much money they'll get after someone dies." I threw on a robe and headed downstairs. Halfway down the staircase, I froze. The living room was packed. At least a dozen people. Old men, middle-aged women, several younger cousins. Everyone was dressed expensively. Everyone looked fake. And every pair of eyes landed on my stomach. One woman gasped dramatically. "Oh my goodness. So, this is the pregnant girl?" Another clicked her tongue. "She looks awfully young." A third smiled. The kind of smile snakes would use. Poor child. Pregnancy outside marriage can't be easy. My eye twitched. I immediately understood why the floating text called them vultures. At the center of the room sat Lillian. Her cane rested beside her chair. Her expression was dark. Very dark. Meanwhile, Matthias stood nearby, one hand in his pocket. Cold. Unreadable. Dangerous. Nobody seemed brave enough to challenge him directly. So they were targeting me instead. A balding man stepped forward. "Miss Smith, have you considered that this child might not actually belong to the Morrison family?" The room went silent. I stared at him. Then I looked at Matthias. Then back at him. The floating text practically screamed. "That's the third uncle. He has 3 failed businesses. He's been waiting years for Matthias to die childless. His son is next in line for inheritance if your baby disappears." Oh, now I understood. I smiled sweetly. "So you're hoping the baby isn't his?" His smile froze. "I didn't say that. But you thought it." The room became awkward. Someone coughed. Third uncle's face darkened. "Young lady, watch your tone." Before I could answer, Lillian slammed her cane onto the floor. The sound echoed throughout the room. "My great-grandchild is barely 6 weeks old, yet you're already praying for something to happen?" Nobody spoke. Third uncle lowered his head. Immediately. "Coward." The floating text snickered. "Direct hit. Critical damage." Then another woman stepped forward. A beautifully dressed woman in her 50s. The text identified her instantly. Second aunt. Expert in fake concern. Watch her cry in 5 seconds. Right on cue, her eyes reddened. "Mother, we're only worried. The Morrison family has many enemies. If this pregnancy is publicized too soon, She glanced at me. Certain people might take advantage. I nearly rolled my eyes.
Certain people. Meaning me.
Second aunt sighed dramatically. After all, she's only dating Matthias now because she's pregnant. The room became silent. Everyone knew exactly what she was implying. Gold digger. Baby trapper. Social climber. I opened my mouth, but someone beat me to it. Wrong. Matthias's voice cut through the room. Every head turned.
He walked calmly to my side, then sat down beside me.
Close enough that our shoulders touched. The room froze. Even I froze. Matthias looked at second aunt. She isn't dating me. Second aunt looked delighted. For exactly 1 second. Then Matthias continued. She's living with me. The room exploded. What? Living together? When did that happen? Already. Second aunt's smile cracked. I nearly laughed. The floating text lost its mind. Oh my God. He's flexing. He's actually flexing. Lillian looked pleased. Very pleased. Meanwhile, several Branch family members looked like they wanted to vomit blood. Then the butler entered. Mr. Morrison. A guest has arrived. Matthias frowned. I didn't schedule anyone. The butler hesitated. She says Miss Raven invited her. I blinked. What? A familiar voice suddenly rang out. Raven. My scalp went numb.
No.
No way. A girl rushed into the villa. Long hair. Designer handbag. Way too much enthusiasm. My best friend. Or rather, my former best friend. Nina Carter. The floating text instantly turned red. Warning. Warning. Major villain detected. I nearly choked.
What?
The text scrolled frantically. In the original story, Nina secretly works with Juliet. She's the one who leaks Raven's pregnancy information. She's the one who helps kidnap the baby. She's the reason Raven dies. The temperature around me seemed to drop. Meanwhile, Nina rushed over and hugged me. I was so worried. You disappeared overnight. I barely slept. The text responded immediately.
Lie.
She slept 8 hours. Then had brunch. I almost laughed. Nina pulled away and looked at my stomach. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. But I caught it. So, did the floating text.
There.
She already knows. Juliet told her. Interesting. Very interesting. Nina grabbed my hand. Raven. You can trust me. I'll always be on your side. I looked into her eyes. Then smiled. A bright smile. A harmless smile. The same smile she'd seen 1,000 times before. Of course. Her shoulders relaxed. Good. Let her relax. Because if those floating words were right, then this woman wasn't my friend. She was a snake. And this time, I wasn't going to wait for the bite. Nina stayed for lunch. I let her. In fact, I was nicer to her than ever. I held her hand, asked about her life, smiled at all the right moments. By the end of the meal, she looked completely reassured. The floating text was delighted. Excellent. The snake thinks she's hidden. Meanwhile, she's wearing a bell around her neck. Sure enough, before leaving, Nina slipped into the garden and made a phone call. I didn't need to follow her. The floating text narrated everything. Calling Juliet. Complaining that Raven is harder to manipulate than before. Juliet is not happy. I almost laughed. Across the table, Matthias quietly handed me a glass of juice. What are you smiling about? I blinked. Nothing. His eyes narrowed. Clearly, he didn't believe me. But for once, he let it go. The next few weeks passed surprisingly peacefully. The Morrison family doctor checked on me regularly. Lillian called every day. My parents visited often. And the Branch relatives slowly stopped causing trouble after Matthias shut them down repeatedly. Most importantly, the baby was healthy. At 10 weeks, I heard the heartbeat for the first time.
Fast.
Strong.
Alive.
The moment the sound filled the examination room, I froze. So, did Matthias. The doctor smiled. The baby is doing very well. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then I looked over. Matthias was staring at the monitor. His expression was unreadable, but his hand had quietly tightened around mine. Just a little. That was the first time I saw him look like a father. The floating text drifted by softly. He already loves the baby. For some reason, my eyes stung. At 12 weeks, the paternity results arrived. Everyone gathered at the Morrison estate. Lillian, my parents, the lawyers, even some branch relatives. The atmosphere was tense enough to snap. The envelope was placed on the table. Lillian looked like she might pass out from anxiety. Finally, the report was opened. The room fell silent. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Then read aloud. The probability of paternity is 99.9999%. Silence. Then, Lillian burst into tears. Actual tears. My mother cried too. My father looked away suspiciously fast. The branch relatives looked like someone had announced the end of the world. And Matthias. Matthias simply reached over and took my hand. Firmly. In front of everyone. No hesitation. No doubt. No distance. The floating text erupted. Confirmed. Mission success. Baby secured. For the first time, I laughed without worry. Juliet made one final attempt. A week later, she appeared at the Morrison estate with red eyes and a heartbreaking expression. She confessed. She said she'd loved Matthias for years. She said she only wanted his happiness. She said she would willingly step aside. Unfortunately for her, nobody cared. Not even Matthias. He listened quietly, then said only one sentence. Don't come back. That was the end of it. Juliet left in tears. And this time, nobody chased after her. Several months later, I was huge. Absolutely enormous. I couldn't see my feet. I couldn't sleep comfortably. And I blamed Matthias for everything. It's your fault. He calmly accepted the accusation. Every time. The floating text found this hilarious. Poor Matthias. Wrongfully convicted daily. One night, while he was helping me walk through the garden, I suddenly stopped. A strange pain hit my stomach. Then another. Then another. Matthias immediately went rigid. Raven. I looked up. My water broke. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine panic on Matthias Morrison's face. 12 exhausting hours later, a baby's cry filled the room. Loud. Healthy. Perfect. It's a boy. The doctor carefully placed him in my arms. I stared down at the tiny face, the tiny fingers, the tiny nose, and suddenly every hardship felt worth it. The floating text appeared one last time. Its words were gentle. Congratulations. You survived. You changed the story. The child was never stolen. You never died. This ending belongs to you now. I looked up. Matthias stood beside the hospital bed. His eyes were fixed entirely on us. On me. On our son. No coldness remained. No distance. Only warmth. Only certainty. Only family. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Thank you. I smiled. For the first time since seeing those strange floating words, I wasn't afraid of the future. Because this future was ours. And nobody was taking it away.